Good afternoon. I'm Chair Sue Oliva, and I'd like to welcome you to the July 2024 Historic Resources Commission meeting. The HRC is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes, the City of Asheville's Unified Development Ordinance, and Buncombe County Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness for alterations, demolitions, new construction, and other work within historic districts, or for the alteration and demolition of historic landmarks, and other duties, including preliminary review of subdivisions as specified in the ordinances for the HRC. I will now ask commission members and staff to introduce themselves.
Amy Moxley, architect.
Cecil Holt.
Sue Oliva, historian.
Will Hornaday, Albemarle Park.
Sarah Gross, anthropologist.
Annie McDonald, architectural historian.
Jenny Bowen, Buncombe County Special Collections. And I'm Alex Cole, I'm the staff liaison to the HRC.
We will now consider the minutes from the June 2024 meeting of the HRC. The minutes include findings of fact and conclusions of law. Are there any corrections?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 12th, 2024 minutes and findings of facts.
Second.
All agree?
Aye.
Motion carries. We will now begin the evidentiary hearings for for the items listed on the agenda. As a quasi-judicial proceeding, the HRC is not setting policy, nor are we soliciting public opinion on the desirability of an application. The HRC hears and considers evidence presented and applies the standards set forth in the guidelines and standards of the specific historic district for that application. The HRC must make its decision upon competent, material, and substantial evidence to determine the facts of the hearing. The HRC will use judgment and discretion to apply the standards contained in the relevant guidelines to the facts. The commissioners in voting for an item will not have a fixed opinion, not susceptible to change, have a conflict of interest, have engaged in ex parte communication regarding the application. This meeting is open to the public, but participation is limited to interested parties who wish to provide comment or testimony regarding the proposal. So for all of you that are going to speak, would you please come forward and raise your right hand?
Yeah, if you think you might speak, you need to be sworn in.
Let's see if this guy's going to speak.
That's one of our staff
Oh,
members.
okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. We will now move on to our first public hearing item. Alex, 1 second. I'd like to welcome our newest commissioner, Mr. Cecil Holt. Welcome,
Thank you.
Cecil. I hope that you will find this enjoyable.
Right. Thank you, Chair Oliva, members of the commission. This first item, if we had a consent agenda, would be certainly on it. It is a pretty straightforward subdivision approval request. The subject property is 197 Cumberland Avenue, so on the east side of Cumberland. This is the only slide I have for this item. There's just the aerial image on the left. The subject property is the building with the black dot on it, and then on the right-hand side is the proposed plat, and the newly subdivided lot will be on the back side of the existing parcel, and it fronts on Flint Street. So that kind of funky little chicane at the end of Flint Street where it comes out into Cumberland. So the development pattern on that side of the street, as you can see on Flint Street, kind of has, a mishmash of setbacks and as far as like the development pattern, how it's occurred over time. So I don't think that there's any issue with approving the proposed subdivision. And so that's all I have. I don't have any additional information to share, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Alex? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
So I'm going to give you a little backstory. I promise I won't take long. I bought my
You
house.
don't mind just introducing yourself?
Oh, I'm Lisa Morphew. I own the property
Hi.
and the house.
And just speak into the mic, please. Thank you.
So I bought my house when it was completely condemned, and I mean, everything was checked on it. People thought I was insane. Trees were growing out of the roof. A man was living in it who had to be taken out. He was the son of Boy Blank, who had been a state senator. So nobody would loan me any money. No, really, people did think I was crazy. Then a local merchant stole all my doors and various things that I had to get back slowly but surely. But anyway, I love my house, and I would not sell this lot if I didn't have to. I'm 73, somewhat handicapped, and I'm heading that way. So if I have a miracle, it's going to stay the way it is. But right now, it doesn't look like it can. So that's about what I have to say. The house was completely restored, got its CO, and I've lived in it since, it took me almost 10 years to get in it. So I love the place, I love my neighbors, and that's about all I can say.
Great. Any questions? Thank you. Any discussion from the commissioners?
Yeah, I don't
Do we have any public comment? Open the floor for public comment. I'll close the floor for public comment. Any further discussion?
If there's no further discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application 3 pages, Exhibit B, proposed plat, and the commissioner's inspection and review of the subject property, I move that this commission approve the hearing on preliminary subdivision approval based on the following. 1, that the application is for subdivision of existing 0.338 acre parcel into a new 0.212 acre parcel containing existing primary structure with a new 2.16 acre vacant parcel. There's no one on that property hiding, okay? Not like you had to deal with. All work will be completed in accordance with approved and attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for new construction, primary structures found on page 92-93 in the Montfort Historic Design Review Standards adopted April 14th, 2010, and amended December 14th, 2016, and Unified Development Ordinance Section 715.1 were used to evaluate this request. 3, this application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, subdivision of lots would allow for new development features, a minimum, to be built in a manner that is congruous with the special character of the historic district as it relates to building setbacks, orientation, and consistency with the historic development pattern. B, new lot with existing structure will retain its congruency with the historic pattern in terms of building orientation, setback, and retention of green space, and spacing between structures. Number 4, that the actions improvements proposed in the application before us for a preliminary subdivision approval request are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a preliminary subdivision approval be issued.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to second item for taking a tour of Cumberland Avenue today. This one is 246 Cumberland Avenue. This request is to, we'll just real quick on my slides here, this a subject parcel on the left and the proposed site plan. Currently, there's a gravel driveway and parking area on the site, and they are proposing to install permeable pavers instead of the gravel there. Just as an FYI, this was approved back in 2018 when the site work, including the swimming pool and all of that, was approved back when, as some of you will recall. So just to give you some more context, this is on the right-hand side looking up the driveway from the street, and then this is further in looking at the side elevation of the house. And this is the street view on the right-hand side, and then the paver type on the left. And it's the same paver type from back then. I did want to just flag that there's this row of mature trees that are immediately adjacent to the driveway, and so that's why I invited Keith, our urban forester, here today in case you all have questions. Keith and I talked about this, and in his opinion, if the pavers are installed on top of the gravel versus excavating out, obviously that would potentially damage the root zones of the trees. So anything we can do to alleviate stress on the trees is best practice. I did communicate with the applicant about this, and he said that he's fine with installing the pavers on top of the gravel, which is great, but at the same time, there's going to have to be some excavation coming down to the apron. So it kind of looks like that's an area where if there's minimal excavation, then that might be, okay, because the tree is a little bit farther from that particular place in the driveway. So, but just probably need to get clarification on the applicant there in terms of what the construction will actually look like. So if you have any questions about potential impacts to the trees, though, I'm happy we can ask Keith to talk through any questions with you. Interestingly, there was not really a lot of attention spent at the 2018 meeting that I could tell talking about the driveway. We were more so talking about the overall amount of paving on the site because of the swimming pool, and the additional paved area within the driveway was just kind of a lot for one site. There's also, the standards also indicate that gravel, a lot of driveways were traditionally gravel in the neighborhood. So there's that to think about. And I do understand that, like, with some heavier rains recently, some of the gravel washes out. I live on a gravel road. It's pretty rowdy right now from all the storms we've gotten in the past week or so. So there's that, and then there's also some broken pieces of paved concrete within the driveway. So it was, I think, unclear to us back then, like, what has the gravel, our driveway always been gravel? Was there a mix of materials there in the first place? Is it, what makes a driveway character defining? Is it the gravel? So those are all things just to think through that I've noted in my staff report. Yeah, I think those were the three things, and I'd asked for a couple of additional items for review, which were the project description, and I asked for a revised site plan, which I received yesterday, which is this, where it's showing all of the paved area that's being utilized immediately adjacent to the structure. The previous iterations of the site plan just showed the driveway coming straight back, but when in fact that whole area immediately next to the side of the house is also, like you can see in the picture on the left-hand side, being used for parking, and that is also being proposed to be paved as well. So I just wanted to make sure you all were clear on what the proposed site plan looked like. So any questions for me?
Alex, is it absolutely gravel or without a binder? Or is it a macadam?
The existing material,
Yes.
it's just gravel.
Because, the reason I ask is because in one of the photos in the packet, there is a rolled edge on the outer side of the driveway between the paved area and the landscaped area. You know, so you can see how it kind of rises a bit. And that made it look to me, and it just the surface texture looks like a very deteriorated tar macadam rather than a straight gravel, which would not have a binder. That picture.
Yeah, I'm sure that the applicant could answer that question better
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Any other questions or for Alex? Thank you.
Is there another example in the neighborhood of that kind of interlocking paver versus soldier rows of brick, or is that, I don't know, whatever, uniform rows?
I think what I've seen more so are and this particular company makes one, the ones that kind of are the shape, and a lot of times people have used them for tracks. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're open in the middle, and we can even pull that up from the manufacturer website if you all want to see what I'm talking about. But they're either diamond shaped or oval shaped, and they're open in the center, so it's.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I've
That's in
seen
the
more so
neighborhood.
versus this kind of more formalized interlocking brick almost in appearance
Was
material.
it this material specifically that was approved in 2018?
Yes,
Okay.
it was the same, this was the same material it was approved for both the driveway and the area surrounding the pool. And then obviously the pool deck got built out of actual brick instead of this paper. So just, I don't think that really matters to me, in my opinion. You know, if you all are comfortable approving the paper, I don't think they need to be matchy-matchy with the other paving material on the site, but just as an FYI that that was what was approved back in 2018 as a whole package of material stuff, so.
No, there's not another example of, because when I looked, I usually see treads or asphalt, or concrete or gravels. But I just wonder, is that introducing
I
a
think there's-
suburban kind of?
I'm like vaguely recalling a project on Elizabeth Place where there was a new construction project where it was concrete, but then in the backyard where the parking area was a like blocky kind of paver like this. But I can't think of any instance where the commission's approved to replace a driveway with a material like, you know, gravel driveway with a material exactly like this, no. Like what Annie was saying, or Commissioner McDonald was saying, it's like, it did appear, I think, to us at the time in 2018, there was kind of a mix of materials there, and so it wasn't clear to us what the original material had been, which is, I think, why the commission could get behind changing the material in the first place. But it was not, you know, that was many moons ago as far as my memory goes, and reading back through the minutes, it was not focused on really heavily individually as a site feature. I think because we had not seen, that was probably the first or second swimming pool that the commission contended with in a very short span of time, and everybody was kind of philosophically trying to get their heads around pools in Montford. And so we definitely spent the bulk of our time focused on that. And it was a long project. It took several months to get through. So I wish I had better clarity around the decision in 2018. But again, I think it really just ties back to that there was a mix of materials there that made it more less of a concern that there would be a change of material, given that we weren't entirely sure what the original material was based on the existing site conditions. And I'm sure the existing site conditions now look a little different than they did 6 years ago for sure after being driven over and parked on. So they just, are what they are today. So you just have to make your decision on that. So yeah,
So
that's.
it's not really a traditional material, but if they did an asphalt or a concrete, that would piss
Asphalt is
somebody off.
prohibited in Montford, so that's a definite no.
I mean, but for the tree roots, that's wood treads. How? My
I don't know if that's
question-
going to accomplish what the property owner
Okay.
wants, do you know what I mean? Based
Yeah,
on the
it's hard
washing
to
out of the driveway, so I'll let him, I'll
Okay.
defer to him on that. But yes, there's definitely driveways that have double tracks or treads, that's totally normal. And the standards obviously say that you can, approve materials on a case-by-case basis. So this is obviously a case on its own, so. I will say that there is something about this material that feels more formal to me, that Montford does not really have this kind of formality in the paving surfaces there. That would be my only thought, that looking at that, let me just pull up this other. Belgard. Well, I thought I had seen it on here. This turfstone paver. There's definitely at least one driveway I can think of in Montford that has this material on the right. Okay. All right, thank you.
Just a little background here.
Name.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. Chris Dunbar, homeowner and applicant. So when we bought the house, it was obviously gravel. We've experienced, a lot of erosion, rilling in the gravel, and ultimately picking it up out of the street over the past 3 years, to where we're kind of down to nothing. And we called the architect who did the original site plan and the kind of the master plan for the remodel. I said, well, was there any other kind of material we could use? And he said, actually, I think we had pavers there from the beginning. So I got the site plan, and sure enough, there were pavers. I checked in with Alex, and pavers had in fact been approved. So I was just trying to go for the path of least resistance here. I mean, I'm trying to eliminate the gravel. I'm not really partial to anything other than not gravel. So in my mind, the pavers were kind of the cleanest thing because they had been previously approved, and that's what I would like to put down. But once again, to me, it's just eliminating the gravel and putting in something else.
So as far as the trees, maybe we could get some input, for the trees, just to see, just as an educational experience, if you're open.
Yeah. Hello, Keith Aiken, Urban Forester. So as far as the pavers are concerned, they're probably the least impactful as compared to, say, asphalt or concrete. Obviously, concrete has a lot of caustic, substances in them that can affect root zones, and especially, where those trees are right next to the driveway right there. You're kind of getting into the root plate at that point, which is the structural part of the tree. So, ideally, putting nothing there would be good or great, but, as far as, what is the best possible outcome, pavers would probably be it. And I think, to stress would be to, not grade that area, if you can, or the architect or the landscaper can, just set your,
Yeah, talking to the landscaper, I mean, I think what we would do is we would,
Can you speak?
come.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Talking with the landscaper, we would come in with a gravel base and compact, as opposed to excavate, and then we would put a leveling sand. That's how we would do it.
Yeah, so that's probably the best possible scenario for those root zones right there, so I don't think, because, anything asphalt or concrete, they're gonna have to go ahead and grade, and once you grade into that root plate right there, which is the structural part of that tree, you're gonna, subject it to, damage that could eventually, affect people's property. So, yeah, I think this is probably the best possible option.
Other questions?
Yes, for the property owner.
Yep.
Is it really gravel or is it a tar macadam, which is like an asphalt but a lower grade?
It's not that. I think if you're seeing the fabric, I think that's landscaping fabric from the buffer between the two houses.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's definitely no asphalt in there at this point.
Not even like an old asphalt from like the 40s?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would say no, but it does not appear like you could drive a stake down through there and you're not going to hit it. I mean, as far as I know,
Okay.
drive asphalt. You're not
Okay.
going to hit asphalt, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Because macadam is asphalt, but it's a little, it's the very early macadam that was used in the early 20th century from like the 1920s through about the 1940s or 1950s isn't the same quality. It's not exactly the same as today's asphalt.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's why I wondered if what we see is something that is a very old the word tarmac is tarmacadam, is an old tarmac from like the 1930s.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just, having spent a lot of time on it, I don't think that's
Okay.
what we're looking at. I think it's, you're basically looking at the base whenever I don't know what's under that, but I don't
Okay.
believe there would be any kind of tarmac. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comments or questions for the applicant?
So this paver in that interlocking, they're not uniform paver stones.
It's 3 different sizes that, they float, but they do kind of interlock with each other, yes. And they're permeable, so they allow, kind of continuous movement of water.
And are they all one color? Because
Well, they are all one, there's variation in each one, but it's all the same color. Like,
so
it
there's
would
not
look
going to be
uniform.
like the example showed like a dark.
Yeah, so the
diagonal.
border, we wouldn't do, that wasn't what was approved. It would just be that one.
straight.
That one paper, yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't add any kind of formal borders or anything to it. We're not expanding the footprint in any way. It's like exactly what was approved. That's all I was trying to do.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Oh, sorry, public comment? Racing through. Is there any public comment? Open the floor? No? I'll close the floor for public comment. Any further discussion?
Of course, I'm going to have something to contribute to this, Madam Chair. I would like to point out that on page 50 of the Montford Design Standards, it states that water-pervious materials such as gravel, crushed stone, or pervious paving blocks minimize runoff, increase infiltration, and are strongly encouraged for new or deteriorated driveways and off-street parking areas. Unfortunately, to point out what I think is another kind of issue with the Montford Design Standards, it doesn't really provide good guidance on identifying appropriate materials for pervious pavers. But and my reason for asking so much, and hopefully the applicant would have said yes, there could be a 1930s macadam under there, is that it is a form of asphalt. And replacing a form of asphalt, which is impervious surface, with something that is pervious, to me, given the fact that asphalt is not permitted in Montford, would be it would increase the congruity of the landscape feature generally, given the fact that asphalt is not permitted at all and pervious pavers are strongly encouraged.
Okay. Any other comment?
For the same reason that pervious paving blocks are encouraged, I am supportive of the change, and as long as it's part of that, the layering to protect the root.
Trees.
I forgot the word already. Root stem? Plate.
Plate, root plate.
We all learned something today. And that's why I'm supportive of the application.
I agree with Commissioner Hornaday. I think that the explanation was fantastic, and I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners.
Okay.
All I was going to say is that I agree as well. I'm wondering if we could, put some installation-like language just to make sure that those, the roots, the root blades, and the root ball are all protected in the motion. That's all I would suggest.
I just was asking Alex about that. I think she added some language basically about
The gravel bed.
the gravel bed and
Sand.
not excavating. I think it's in one now, but I think it needs to be more specific. If you add that, or we could talk to the applicant
Yeah.
about what to add at the end.
Do you want to come up?
It's in the motion template. If you want to read number 1 in the motion template, I wrote it into the certificate of appropriateness request.
Want me to read it out loud? That the application is to replace existing gravel driveway with permeable paver driveway. Minimal or no excavation will occur as part of the installation of the pavers. The pavers will be installed on top of existing gravel in order to have less impact on the root zones. Can we change that to plates?
Sure.
And the adjacent row of mature trees. All work will be in accordance with the attached.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I can live with that.
You okay with
I
that?
don't know if it's existing gravel, if it's a new gravel bed that's used to be sort of like a base layer.
Will it be gravel on top of gravel? Is that what you were?
Yeah, I imagine we will bring in some gravel and dirt and we will compact it again until we get, our elevations are pretty good the way it is, so we're not gonna have to go down. If the concern is excavation, I do not believe we're going to need to excavate anymore, so.
And does compacting, does that affect the roots?
Yeah, the driveway's already compacted a lot, and you can tell from the pictures where there's definitely an elevation change
Yeah.
from the ground level. So although I would probably prefer the wouldn't compact as much, I think it's, the trees and the root zone and the root plate has pretty much adapted over time. So although, those roots are pretty shallow, as long as you're plate compacting, if you were sitting there with a jackhammer and you were, compacting a small space, it might affect the root zone a little bit. But, a plate compactor is, usually 16 by 16. I think, that'll probably, have less of an impact when you're compacting than, something, rather than digging up those root systems. Obviously, this isn't the most ideal thing here, but, having permeable pavers are obviously going to slow that water down and keep that water into those root zones where it needs to be in the first place, so.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam, if everybody's all right, I'm
think
gonna
we're
make
ready.
a quick motion here. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application 2 pages, Exhibit B, original site plan, Exhibit C, photograph, site plan, and paver specifications, 4 pages, Exhibit D, site plan, received July 8th, 2024, Exhibit E, project description, received July 8th, 2024, Exhibit F, additional photographs, 3 pages, received July 8th, 2024. Exhibit G, revised site plans, received July 9th. Exhibit H, website for Belgrade pavers, shown by Alex Cole on July 10th, 2024. And the commission's actual inspection and review of the subject property. I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application to replace existing gravel driveway with permeable paver driveway, minimal or no excavation will occur as part of the installation of the pavers. The pavers will be installed on top of existing and new layer of gravel, and in order to have less impact on the root plates and the adjacent row of mature trees. All work will be in accordance with the attached and approved drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before any work must commence. 2, that the standards for walkways, driveways, and off-street parking found on pages 50, 51, the landscaping and trees on page 40, 41 of the Montfort Historic District Design Review Standards adopted April 14, 2010, and amended December 9, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. 3, this application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, the location and configuration of existing driveway are being retained and preserved. B, the replacement driveway will be compatible with the site and district in terms of dimension, configuration, materials, color, and texture. C, mature trees are being retained and preserved. Number 4, the actions and improvements proposed in this application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and for reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really glad to have a tree expert in my department now.
He stays at every meeting.
Yeah, he's going to be a permanent fixture. In fact, I think I'm going to stop coming and just let Keith run my meeting.
Putting down roots.
Will for the win.
Use that.
All right. Last item under public hearings is 135 Cumberland Avenue. Let's see. Parcel map on the left and then a photo of the front elevation on the right-hand side, just to orient everyone. The proposal is to modify 2 existing window openings on the north side of the house that are, if you're looking at the picture on the left, the 2 big windows on the first floor. And then obviously there's a close-up photo on the right showing the existing windows, and then there's existing and proposed elevation drawings as well. I noted a couple of things. One, on page 84, the standards note that changing existing window openings should only be taken for compelling reasons. My calculation for the wider openings in my staff report is wrong. I think the contractor said it was going to be like 8 inches overall for, I think, each, but I'll let him clarify on that. I don't, in my opinion, this is for, I'm sure if you look through the documents in the folder, there are plans for their kitchen remodel, which is what is driving this. I've had plenty of times been supportive of adding or changing window openings on non-character defining elevations and plenty of times in the past. I just don't, I'm having a hard time supporting this one based on the like net gain of the opening changing. It's just, to me, it's not going to be that much bigger. Additionally, the windows are, specifically proportioned to line up with the windows above on the second story. The other thing I noted is that, of course, original windows that contribute to the overall character and form of historic buildings should be retained and preserved. And then also the proposed new window units, which there is a revised spec in the folder. They were proposing double hung windows with the diamond pattern upper sash. But what's currently proposed is a 1/1 double hung, which I think is the more appropriate option anyway. But the spec that's in the folder is for a clad window product, and the windows, as we debated recently, the standards say that new window units should be wood. So those are my notes, and I am happy to answer questions if you all have any.
Questions for Alex?
Alex, I may have missed this in the staff report. Are the existing windows original?
Yes.
The existing sash are original and not replacement units?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This house does have kind of a mishmash of, there's some that are diamond pattern upper sash and some that are 1/1. But I've seen that on plenty of Queen Anne houses in Montford.
And the reason I asked is because the photographs, the interior photographs, just the dimensions on the rails and stiles seemed a little modern to me. But, it's neither here nor there, kind of. I just wanted to verify.
You can see the weights in there on one of them, I thought, in the walls. But maybe that's something that carries.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can see the weights, but even replacement sash can make
Yeah.
use of weights.
Well, and they also could be replacement sashes that are historic,
Yeah.
know. The other thing though is, to me, or the bigger thing to me, is the openings changing. So,
That's in the standards.
yeah, it's just, I just don't, obviously compelling reason is subjective, but to me, just having that much of a bigger window opening is just, that to me isn't a really compelling reason in my opinion, but that's just my opinion, so.
I'm gonna put another plug in for my argument that I think the Montfort design standards need work, because a compelling reason I don't think is necessarily good language for design standards, but
I think probably I don't know, it's hard to debate those kinds of things when you're actually reviewing a project.
and that's why it shouldn't be in the
so.
standards.
But if you look at best practice for design guidelines, they are all intended to be subjective because they have to be applied to a very broad range of site and building conditions. And so I'm just going to defend the Montfort standards a little bit here, because I think that they are subjective intentionally, because everything's a case-by-case basis, right? So, and that's why you exist. If everything were crystal clear, then staff could approve it, and so we wouldn't need a commission. I could get rid of you guys, but fired, you're fired. No, I'm teasing.
Cecil's first day. Wherever we got fired.
I will say too, one thing that's certainly important to note is that these windows are not visible from the street. So that's, something you can certainly consider, of course.
Any other comments or questions for Alex?
Okay, thank you.
Applicant to come forward?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Lauren Clark. I am the applicant and homeowner. Yes, we are in the midst of a kitchen remodel of making the kitchen as beautiful as the rest of the home. And I just want to say that our devotion to keeping the character and the historical integrity of the home is incredibly important to us. This is an Oliver Davis Revel home. We love it so much. My fiance proposed to me on the balcony. I don't know if I'm getting emotional about that. Our daughter, who is now 1.5, we gave her the middle name Revel after our architect. We love, love, love this home. One of the things that we love about this home is the natural light in all of the rooms, almost all of the rooms, the character-defining rooms of the house, the living room downstairs, the dining room, which you can see in some of the other photos, how large those windows are. The only room that doesn't have larger windows on the bottom side of the house is the kitchen. We are proposing to add, it's 8.5 feet of light per window. So to extend the current windows to 48 inches by 78 inches. That's adding another entire window of light, which is incredibly compelling for me, for the children that we're going to raise in this house, and as a character-defining piece to match all of the other existing large windows in the house, which you can even see from the side that the kitchen windows will be, the turret windows. We're looking to expand to about almost the same size within a couple of inches of each of these. So having a beautiful, well-lit kitchen for this beautiful home that we will live in for decades and decades to come and pass on to our children and our children's children is important to me. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I don't know why. I think I'm nervous. Yeah, so a lot more light is incredibly compelling to us. And just to echo that this side is not seen from either street, either the front or the back alley.
Questions or comments for the applicant?
So the windows will get taller and wider?
Yes, that's correct.
How much taller?
I know that the new windows we're proposing are 48 inches by 78 inches.
How much taller, how much wider?
Aben Heasley, contractor. 6 inches taller, 2 at the top, 4 at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, Aben Heasley, contractor.
So you said 2 inches at the top.
We're proposing 2 more, two at the top, 4 at the bottom, which keeps it within the regulations for not having to have tempered windows inside. And then an additional 8 inches wider per window. I think it actually increases it by 7.5 feet per window. But that's frame to frame. It's near impossible to calculate the actual glass.
So when you say frame to frame, are you talking the inside dimension or the external dimension on the surround?
The external dimensions.
On the surround will be 8 inches wider and 6 inches taller. Okay. And how big will the surrounds be? And by surround, let's make sure we're using the same terminology. When I use the word surround as an architectural historian, I'm referring to the piece of board that is on the wall around the opening that frames the opening, but not necessarily the casing that holds the sash. So dimensions, like what will be the dimensions from the edge of the trim to the edge of the trim?
The dimensions I have are the current window casing and then the specs of the proposed windows. And so we're planning on matching the trim. And
Okay.
so therefore, I think that the increase would carry over into, so that 8 inches wider would carry over into the trim itself.
Okay, okay. I know what you mean by that. Okay. I have a question for staff and my fellow commissioners, because I have something, Alex, that you said was it's not, one of the factors is that it's not visible from the road. So when we had new window sashes proposed for a porch enclosure a few months ago that were not visible from the road in Montford, one of the things that I'd pointed out was, it's not visible from the road, so what's the impact going to be on the Montford district overall? Because the visibility, isn't there. So people walking down the street, the general character of the district from the public way will not be affected. And if I recall, I asked you, what your thought was, and you thought that it would still have an impact on the district because it was a different material that was proposed. In this case, you said it's not clearly visible from the streets. What is your take on this proposed change? Do you think it will have an impact or no?
I do, because if I think about impacts over time, do you know what I mean? Like if you're, like let's say these two windows change now, and then maybe in 30 years there's a different owner, and they're like, oh, okay, now I want to change this handful of windows over on this side. Do you know what I mean? Like that to me, I feel like the point is just to treat it sensitively, regardless of whether or not it's visible from a public right-of-way. But do I think that that is where the commission has allowed more change in the past to window and door openings? It has been on either a rear elevation where they're not visible at all, or where they're much less visible. And so I think that is just something that is generally accepted in the field of preservation as being something that you can consider when someone's proposing a change like this.
Because I think that, with all due respect to the applicant, because I completely understand your reasoning, regardless of how one might define the term compelling. I think to be fair and consistent in the way we apply the standards, we have to give consideration to that earlier case. Yes, we review everything on a case-by-case basis, but we have, if we approve this without clearly seeing how it meets the standards, then I think one might make an argument that we are applying them inconsistently.
But that was a different case, and
It was.
about the material, though. It wasn't about changing the openings.
It's still an application of the standards on an elevation that's not clearly visible, and how do we, how do we factor in visibility?
Yeah. But I don't, none of the other commission members at that last hearing were talking about the rear elevation being something, you were the only one, and so I don't understand, I'm kind of confused as to why you're correlating those
Well,
two.
because you said that one of the things we can consider is the fact that this is not clearly visible. That's why I brought it up today.
I'm not talking about the material, though.
Right.
I'm talking about changing the opening.
It's still a matter of congruity.
They're not apples to apples, in my opinion, so.
If we, is the floor open for public?
Not yet, it isn't. Do you want it to
Closed?
be?
No.
No, it's not anything. I'm just waiting to see if anybody else has.
Is there any other
Anybody else?
questions?
She's waiting for me to shut my mouth.
No.
No,
Was
I
there?
think we're-
No.
Go ahead.
No. Well, I'm ready to discuss amongst us. I don't have a question for the applicant. I understand.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Okay, got it. I'll open the floor for public comment. I'll close the floor for public comment. Okay, commissioners, let's talk about this. So go ahead, Will.
As Commissioner McDonald said, I hear the reasoning, and I read the standards to retain and preserve the original windows, and the character of the house, and maybe, and when I think about that, I think about the use of the kitchen maybe wasn't as light and bright in past uses as some of the other more, and that's what makes an old house interesting. So I'm leaning to not approve the change of windows for standard 1, 2, and the bottom of page 84. They should be only undertaken a change for a compelling reason. And the lifespan of new windows won't meet generally what these have, how long these have lasted. So that's my feeling at this point.
So what would be a compelling reason for you and for Annie?
Fire egress, I think, is a compelling reason that sometimes, but a compelling reason is there's more, I don't know, but I don't feel that compelling reason is the main reason not to approve it. I think it's the retention of original material in the house is part of what this commission is tasked to do or asked to do. And I know as someone in an older house that has had windows taken out, that we, putting in, trying to get replacements is very difficult, and it could be decades and decades from now, but that's a real experience.
To be clear, Madam Chair, I'm not saying that I don't support it.
Okay, I'm just,
I'm talking about consistency and fairness in application of the guidelines.
okay.
I absolutely despise the language of the standards that talk about compelling reasons, because it can be so widely interpreted and have nothing to do with historic character, which is our charge. And so you end up debating different objectives that aren't maybe clearly stated in that statement about compelling reasons. One thing, I'm not saying that I don't support it, I'm not saying that I do. One factor that I am considering, as I considered in the last application that I brought up, is its lack of visibility, because that is meaningful to me when it comes to congruity and impact on character. So that is something that I take into consideration, and I tend to apply fairly liberally. I would also be supportive of adding a third window in between the two, because they are roughly equally spaced, and creating what is essentially a tripartite opening where the two original windows still maintain the original columnar form with the windows on the second story above, while adding light in between them. So you're still basically maintaining that rhythm and balance along the elevation while increasing light into the kitchen. But that is something that the applicant has not discussed or proposed to us. But
They don't have that option because there is is it the gas line or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
That's what you wanted to do? Okay.
Yes, hi. Thank you for mentioning that, because that is originally what we looked
Okay.
to do. because of the gas and HVAC that run through it, the old pipes. We tore the wall apart to see if we could do that, and unfortunately, we cannot. So our option 2 was to increase the size to the size of the other core windows of the house.
Okay.
Thank you. And yes, it's wood. Yeah, it's the same material, yeah. And, sorry, the only last thing would be that we didn't write in this, but the windows are almost unfunctional. It feels like keeping them, like one has a hole in it. It looks like a bullet hole. I can't imagine that. Maybe a rock went through it or something, but you can't really lift them either. So their replacing seems imminent. The question is, it feels like the size.
So this is always the interesting part of preservation, right, is allowing people to live in a home and make changes that keep it in its historic flavor and respect the guidelines. You know, that's why we have this openness. I think I respect all of you and your opinions. It's not a right, wrong thing to me. It's where we land. And I think living in a house with more light in the back of the house where you can't see it is a compelling reason to me. I would not agree if it was on an elevation you could see. And I very much respect what the rest of the commissioners feel about this. That's where it gets difficult, is where is the line on keeping something as it was versus changing? Anybody else?
I feel like we are thinking about a multitude of things in this situation. Like, we're thinking about past applicants, but we're also thinking about the material and the size and the location. And I feel like since it's not so cut and dry, I'm kind of falling in the middle, but also more falling towards being okay with it. I do think that it is a compelling reason because you're living in that space and it's very important. It's also in a good part of the house to be able to make that change. I am, in this moment, prioritizing the material and the fenestration itself. And I think that those two things are where my priorities are lying, so that's why I'm leaning towards being okay with
I am landing on Will's camp, just for number one, just retaining the existing windows.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, I can. No, I was just saying that I'm in Will's camp here, but just for the number one, which is just retain the existing windows.
Yeah, I'm actually there with you as well.
Okay, so
Here, 1, 2, 3.
so where you, I mean,
I'm still.
You're still taking it in?
Taking in. You know, I'm always going to be a big proponent of life safety and accessibility. But in this case, I really didn't get a chance to see the property, so I'm taking in the good points. I think it was good to hear that you did consider other options, but you're kind of limited. Yeah, I'm still, this is my first meeting, so.
yeah, we're gonna put all the pressure on.
Just taking it in.
Yeah, pressure.
I don't take it as pressure, but I don't think it's fair for me to really be opinionated, because I'm hearing a lot of good information from my colleagues, and I think you presented, a good case. So that's just where I am.
I have another question for the applicant. How tall are those windows in the turret? Will the new windows be taller? They'll be as wide as the turret windows, but those turret windows seem fairly squat. Is it just the perspective of the photo? Or,
We did measure them. I wish we had brought the measurements with us. I don't know. I think it's all sides, but I can't tell you exactly how much taller they are than the current windows.
Okay.
But they are indeed taller.
okay, I kind of thought that was the case.
Because I remember when we went up there to measure it
Yeah.
with our proposed of what we were thinking for the kitchen
Yeah.
windows, we're like, oh my God, the bedroom windows are like the same size. The dining room windows are like the same size.
Yeah, yeah. Because if the new windows are taller even than the existing windows, then they'll be taller even than those. Because I could understand if you're justifying widening without making them taller, you've got pre-existing conditions in the house that you could use as an argument for, approving that same size window elsewhere on the building.
Yeah.
But if you were making them not just wider, but also taller, then is that a window size you have elsewhere on the house?
I wish we had brought them with us. I just remember thinking, it's pretty much the same size. But I can get exact measurements of that window, of all the taller and wider windows, if that would be helpful. Improving the character alignment of the house.
I would, because of the lack of visibility, and because it is, in my opinion, and that's mine only, a modest change to the size of the opening on what is the back part of the house, I'm inclined to approve it because I don't think the congruity is, particularly problematic there. If it were else, as others have said, if it were elsewhere on the building, I would probably be disinclined to approve it.
Okay, so I think that means at this point we're 3-3. Yeah, we're- at this point, I think we're 3-3.
No
Well, because
lobbying,
there's 7.
Cecil.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I mean,
Well,
we
you are
all
going to have to vote.
We all have to vote.
Everybody has to vote,
We
even
think
if you're getting from their
Yeah,
side.
and it's,
Well, in this
Uh,
case,
I don't know if it matters to anyone, that additional information of what the windows in the turret are, or how close they are to what these requests and replacements would be. If that matters to you and your decision, it might be something that you'd want to ask for continuance to come back with that information. But I don't know where everybody stands now on how important that is to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have a 3-3 split, wait, 1, 2?
well, there's 7.
Oh, there's 7 of us. I can't
Yeah.
count. Okay, never mind.
We have to have a majority vote, and if it won't be a split. If it was a split.
No, it won't be a
no.
split when I.
That's what
yeah,
I was, that's what I was
right, we
doing.
just-
Okay.
Right.
Right. But it sounds like some are maybe on the fence, some we've heard clearly. And
So
I
you're-
just don't know if that
you want me to break
information.
the ties in?
Well,
Well, I just want to, has anybody changed their mind? No? I mean, it's fine. This is how.
Or would additional information
Right.
help folks?
So depending on,
I mean, I go and vote, yeah, I'll go with.
you're a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then it's 4-3. So, we can vote now, or, which looks good, very good for you, or we can ask you to do a continuance until next month with more information.
I think I'll go now.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
If I'd known we could get more information, I would have elaborated more on my perspective of it. But, I mean, are we talking inches in width on each window?
8 inches wider,
Yeah.
6 inches taller. Yeah,
You said width and height.
width and height.
Yeah, it's bigger. It's 7.5 more feet of length per window?
More like.
Okay, so are we ready to vote? Need a motion?
Did we open it up for, yeah, we did, okay. Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including, let me make sure I have the right one, yeah. Exhibit A, the application and project description of 3 pages. Exhibit B, the elevation drawings of 2 pages. Exhibit C, the floor plans and interior elevations of 8 pages. Exhibit D, the additional floor plans of 2 pages. Exhibit E, the window specifications. Exhibit F, the revised window specifications received July 2nd, 2024. Exhibit G, 12 pages of photographs. And the commission's actual inspection and review of the subject property. I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. That the application is to enlarge 2 existing window openings on the first floor of the north elevation and install 2 new wood 1/1 double-hung windows. All trim around the openings will match the existing in dimension, design, material, pattern, detail, and texture. All work will be in accordance with the attached and approved drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. That the standards for windows and doors found on pages 84 to 85 and materials wood on pages 66 to 67 of the Montford Historic District Design Review Standards adopted on April 14th, 2010, and amended December 9th, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. The window openings being modified are on a non-character defining elevation. I'm actually going to change that. Are on the north elevation at the back of the house where they are not character defining. As an aside, the reason I'm changing that is because part of that elevation is character defining. New window units will be wood and compatible with the character of the building. The new trim will match the existing in dimension, design, material, pattern, detail, and texture. That the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special character of the Montford Historic District.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Do we need to have a roll call vote on that?
Yeah. Did you get it?
Put your hands up, so all the
The
ayes.
nays? Push-
Ayes.
all the ayes?
Cecil. Okay, can you hold your hand up for a second, just while we make sure we get everybody's name? The other now? Yeah. Okay, and the nays?
Nays.
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following do we need the window specifications? Okay, with this following condition, that the wood window specifications will be submitted for staff review and approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Same as before?
Same. Do you want us to?
Do you need us to do this again? Okay.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Can you come up? Sorry.
I'm looking for a clarification on when construction could begin.
I'll follow up with you
Okay,
in the
thank you.
next couple of days or so.
Okay, thank you.
we have any other comments?
I have one really short update that I didn't put on here, but just wanted to, as an FYI, so, as you all know, that the executive committee has been working on, so you, new Commissioner Holt, we have had, some resident proposed design standard amendments in Montford, and, they presented those to the commission back in maybe April or so, and, the executive committee of the commission, as a result of that, has been more or less like studying those proposed amendments and working on some draft text amendments for specifically the residents in that group wanted to change the standards for additions, solar, windows, and fences. And so we've spent the most of our time on the standards for additions, just hashing out a red line version for those. And then we're gonna do, we have one more executive committee meeting next week to just kind of refine everything. And then we're gonna hold a work session with the full commission, probably in September, where it will be just talking through, and it will be open to the public, of course, because all of our meetings are to comply with open meetings law, but we will not accept public comment at that meeting. It will just be a session for you all to hash through those 4 sections of the standards and talk about, or for the executive committee to share with you what their thoughts are on where we are today. So, and then we should be beyond that. What we've communicated to that resident group is that hopefully we can get it ironed out in one work session, and then we can get our game plan together with our communication staff to go out to the neighborhood at large and do some outreach and try to get buy-in from the rest of the neighborhood and not just this small group of 4 people that are proposing the amendment. So it's just kind of like reclaiming the process from them a little bit so that we can do our own survey, do our own engagement, and make sure we're reaching as many people as we can. And then see where we go from there. Assuming that everyone's kind of on the same page as much as we can be about the proposed amendments, then that will just come back, that will be just a vote that you all take at an eventual meeting, and it's not quasi-judicial, so we can talk about it.
Then when we read that it's adopted, the Montford standards, 3 different dates, 2010, 2017, 2024, keep that going?
That's a great question. It's something that I think about at really dumb times, like when I can't sleep at 4 in the morning, and I'm like, I don't know why we don't just have a list somewhere. Like, why do we have to have that every single time? I think probably what a good idea would be to, I don't know that I can identify the specific meeting dates without like going and digging through our storage boxes of minutes from years past for a few days to figure out what exactly dates the previous amendments occurred. But I think maybe we could just add like an appendix or something that lists out the dates we know and then the dates moving forward, so then you could just say adopted on whatever date, 2024 or 2025, or something. We can figure that out. I would like to make that better also. It's annoying to me that we just say the one amendment, but then it's been amended plenty of times before that. So does that make sense as far as our game plan goes? Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Could I ask just a
Oh,
question?
sorry.
Oh,
No, go ahead. No. You say whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I'm ready to go too, but, quick question, it's just a restaurant, but, so, if you have a odd number, then we have to vote, but had it been 6 or even number, you could ask for more information for them to postpone for more information.
No, I mean, it's sometimes there's just a need to continue if like a commissioner or the whole commission has questions that are kind of unanswered. They might say, can you bring this additional information, like the size of that window and the turret back to us before we make our decision?
Right.
Or like if there's suggested revisions to a project or,
So I could have not voted, and then we would have
No, we
deferred it?
Everyone has
Okay.
to vote, but what we try to do, we used to do it, we'd even do a straw poll, which you're not supposed to do. Say, I think I'm definitely gonna vote this way and this way. Because you want the applicant to know, because once they are denied, they can't come back again for a year unless they have a significantly different application. So if there's one where people say enough to say, I'm leaning this way or that way, but if I had more information, say somebody had said, if I knew that those windows in the turret were exactly what is gonna also be replaced with, then that would give me, then I know I definitely would be in favor of it. So we try to work with applicants, and sometimes, for the most part, if applicants kind of see it's not going their way, they will say, well, what are sometimes you have more suggestions, like if the third window would have worked, they would have come back with a rendering. So, yeah, so that's what you want to try to get, because we want to try to get to
We want a
yes.
positive.
Right.
We're trying to be positive.
And I, didn't know I was gonna be voting, that was gonna be, so I would have been paying more attention, but I would have liked to have seen some interior, pictures or something, and maybe they were there, but I was reading something else. But, I'm just trying to get educated as to, the best way to serve.
There's lots of documents, and I think, now some people bring their own standards with them because
Yeah.
it's easier to read that while you're looking at all the materials. But I think some people look at the standards online too and flip between, but that always helps too, as they're talking about the standards, to start looking at them yourself and say, yeah, I kind of see this one.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
I mean, there's fuzzy lines, so, it just depends, that's where we come in.
5:22, I make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Favor?
Aye. And the chairs love their gavel.
I know. That's how you go home with.
I know. They seem to enjoy it just as much.
It's actually nice because you have like a gift that everybody.
I know, the gavel.